Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tom's Hardware Live. We're sitting down with hardware vendors at the all-virtual CES 2021 to get a sneak peek at the products they have planned for this year. I'm your host, Sharon Harding, Tom's Hardware Senior Editor, and joining me is Tom's Hardware's Editor-in-Chief, Avram Pilch. Hello, Avram.
Hey.
And we also have Ray here from Viewsonic. How are you, Ray?
I'm doing really well, thank you.
Awesome. Well, Ray is here to give us a preview of the new gaming monitors and projectors Viewsonic announced this week. And this is also your chance to ask questions. If you have any question about what you see here today, just drop it into the chat on Facebook or YouTube, and we'll try to answer it live on air. So Ray, what is Viewsonic announcing at CES this year?
So yeah, we actually have a lot of really exciting products coming out this year. So Viewsonic, we are focused on display products, basically any visual product. So we go span the gamut from small portable monitors all the way up to commercial displays, really big ones, and whiteboarding products and projectors in there as well. So I think the stuff that'd be most relevant to your audience is some of the really high-end gaming stuff that we're showing. And specifically, we have a new model coming out called the Elite Xg271 Qg. That is part of our Elite gaming lineup. It's a lineup that we've actually been building for the last couple of years and trying to kind of get our industrial design and our name out there under an Elite banner that's really a high-end product. That one is a 32-inch 4K monitor that has 144 Hertz refresh rate. It's an AMD Premium Pro monitor, so it does have variable refresh rate. And crucially, it is an HDMI 2.1 monitor, and it'll be our first HDMI 2.1 monitor. It'll actually have dual HDMI 2.1s on it. So if you have basically a high-end gaming PC plus all of the new gaming consoles, you can actually connect all of them to this monitor at the same time because it also has the DisplayPort 1.4. So we're really excited about it. It's an HDR monitor as well, 600 nit HDR certified. We're not really ready to announce pricing at this point, but we are targeting around the summertime release for that product. So I definitely you'll see a little bit more on the media side as well as we get that revved up for this product. But I can try to show you guys a couple images here if I get them pulled up.
Yeah, sure. So while you get those photos pulled up, I had some questions about that. So this monitor is doing 4K at 144 Hertz. Is that through DisplayPort or HDMI?
Through the DisplayPort, it'll do 144. It should actually do it through the HDMI as well, but it depends on whether or not your device actually supports the 2.1 standard. So basically, everything we've seen so far with 2.1 would be like the next-gen game consoles, and so those will only support up to 120, and that's a limitation on the console. But through the DisplayPort, you should have no issues reaching that 144 Hertz refresh rate.
Very cool, and that's without compression, then, right?
Correct. That is without compression.
Very cool. Yeah, so there were a number of HDMI 2.1 gaming monitors announced this week. How do you see that? Because now, the port is getting more availability and we have the consoles, the gaming consoles also supporting it. So just curious how you see that kind of changing the gaming landscape, that availability of HDMI 2.1.
I think it's a really good thing. I think that the faster we can get these new standards into people's hands, the better. And HDMI 2.0 has served us really, really well. And it's a great connector for 4K at 60. But once you go beyond that, the limitations become very clear. And HDMI 2.1 has shown the biggest bandwidth jump we've ever seen in HDMI. So it really is something where we want to see that kind of percolate through as many products as we can. And of course, we're going to focus on the flagship ones first.
Cool. So we have a question from Javier Perea real quick. Is this DisplayPort 2.0 on the Xg32U?
The current spec that we have on that, it's a DisplayPort 1.4a, but because the one we have now is in a prototype phase, that could still change before launch.
So did you have some photos you wanted to show us?
Yes, here, let me... So if I move over here, so this just gives you kind of a quick idea of what the industrial design is on these monitors. So we share a industrial design kind of on all of our Elite monitors, where they have a very highly illuminized structure to them. The entire base is aluminum. The uprights are aluminum, and the fascia is as well. It's not kind of going for a very super gamery look. It's actually supposed to be kind of refined and higher end looking. But we do also include RGB lighting on it. So basically. I'll stop sharing now. It'll show you sort of like, it's a little lighting onto your keyboard space and onto your back wall. So like really more gentle RGB lighting is included on there, not super flashy.
Do you avoid putting it on the bottom because that's distracting?
It's just a design aesthetic. It's one of those things where we wanted it to be a little bit more ambient than obvious. Some cases, if you wanted to be more obvious, you might do like a light pipe where you're seeing the LEDs in a row. We wanted it so that the only way that you would see them is basically as a reflection or a bounce of that light.
What do you think, Avram? How do you like the RGB on your monitors? In the back, like against the wall, or do you want to
I like it in my face. I want the RGB to be beamed directly into my eyeballs. But you know, I think if the quality of the image in the game or the content that I'm using is good, then I'm probably going to be more interested in that while I'm actually, you know, consuming content. I'll really care more about the RGB when I'm not really using the computer and I'm just kind of walking around, or other people are. So, you know, so I think that's really what's key. I'm kind of curious where you see 4K gaming going this year. I mean, we have seen graphics cards now that are really pushing the envelope, where it is possible to do pretty decent 4K gaming if you can possibly get your hands on an RTX 3080 or 3090 card.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely the challenge right now. But I think that once the supply issues start to normalize, we really are in the first generation where 4K gaming is much more practical. I mean, we've had 4K gaming support on PC side for years. I've had 4K gaming monitor for a very long time. But to actually get to that, you know, really, really nice, smooth FPS, and now to move beyond 60 hertz, that's something that we're only going to get now. And part of it was connectors. I mean, you could only do it on DisplayPort before now. HDMI opens up a whole slew of different products that will support that, because HDMI is just a very ubiquitous connector, and DisplayPort, for the most part, is really dedicated to computers.
So, Ray, what else is Viewsonic showing off at this year's CES?
Yeah, so another one of the cool ones that I think would be interested to your gaming audience would be some of our new projectors. So we actually have two projectors that are coming out, and one of them that we showed off yesterday in person, because it's actually available now. That's the PX701-4K and the PX748. These two are sort of our entertainment home projectors. High brightness, they're like 3200 lumens, which for those of you, maybe you're not that familiar with projectors, that basically means you can fill a whole wall and it's going to be nice and bright. But what's really cool about these new projectors is that they actually support a native 240 hertz mode. So we believe that these are the fastest projectors in the world in terms of their input lag and their response time. So because at 240 hertz, you've only got an image on screen for 4.2 milliseconds. The actual input latency that we see is actually under 5 milliseconds. So it's higher than we would see on, we believe, just about any commercially available TV, because every commercially available TV can do about a max of 120 hertz. There's very few with a native 240 hertz mode. And before, let me head off the question before it comes. The 240 hertz mode on these projectors is supported at 1080p. It is not 4K 240 hertz because the connector won't support it at this point. But the 120 hertz, the 240 hertz mode is a 1080p mode.
Can you do what can you do at 4K?
At 4K, you do 4K 60. So it does support 4K, and 4K 60, that would be, I mean, you can do 4K gaming, obviously, but that would be great for content consumption.
So who are you seeing, you know, most interested in these gaming projectors? I'm just curious, and also I'm curious who, you know, why would you opt for the projector versus, you know, a 240 hertz monitor? Is it portability, or what's the main attraction for the projectors?
Well, I think you would probably have a little bit of a different audience if you were comparing somebody who's going to buy a projector versus somebody who's going to go for the 240 hertz monitor. Most 240 hertz monitors are sort of in the 24 to 27 inch size category, and it's usually just you in that game. So if you're a competitive gamer, you want to be focused, you want the screen right in front of you. That's what you care about. If you're going to a projector, that's much more of a social thing. So that's where you kind of bring in other people. It's where you set up a big couch and you make the whole wall into a gaming thing. If you're opening up an experiential center and you want people to hang out and have fun, or if you want that experiential center to be your living room, you can do that kind of stuff. And so we see like projectors in use many times where you might have multiple projectors set up, where you've got multiple stations where people can kind of check out big screen gaming, because there's always a big wow factor when you see 100-inch screen that's playing a game and it's running really, really smooth. And I think the really smoothness of it is something that people don't associate with projectors, but definitely that's something where we're trying to get to turn people's heads to take another look at it, because it is really cool.
Is there such a thing as adaptive sync for a projector?
There is. I have not seen it. It's part of the HDMI standard to have adaptive sync. I don't believe this one supports it. So I have not seen that before, but that is an interesting question. And there's nothing about a projector that couldn't support it from a technical standpoint, but I've never seen it.
So I think we have another question from Javier.
So Javier is asking if Viewsonic tests their screens for G-Sync compatibility. So I think the question being that many FreeSync monitors, even if they're not G-Sync certified, will actually run G-Sync. So do you test your FreeSync only or adaptive sync monitors to see if they'll run G-Sync, even if they're not NVIDIA certified?
Yes, all of our Xg monitors do have are G-Sync compatible. There are a couple of them that do have the dedicated G-Sync module in them, and those ones are the ones that are sort of the dedicated G-Sync monitors. But as we've all seen, the definition of G-Sync and FreeSync has kind of been expanding in the last couple of years. So a lot more monitors are able to meet the specification, even if they're not using the exact hardware that NVIDIA initially kind of prescribed for these.
What about the monitors that are only FreeSync certified? Do you also test them for G-Sync?
I believe we do, and to my knowledge, I don't know of any that was FreeSync certified that then failed on G-Sync certification. So there should always be some level of support there.
Awesome. A quick question on the projector. So what's the largest size the projection can be, and what's the ideal seated distance from the image?
The largest you can do, I believe on those, we go to about 300 inches would be the absolute biggest, but you would need to be what's the thing is that once you're dealing with a certain amount of lumens, so of brightness, so as you get bigger and bigger, it's going to get dimmer and dimmer. So we kind of put it at about 300 inches. Anything bigger than that, you probably wouldn't enjoy the experience. So that's getting closer to more like a theater size, but you would also need sort of a theater darkness to enjoy it. As far as throw distance, these ones are pretty standard throw distance. They're not short throws. So figure if you put 8 to 10 feet between you and the wall, you're going to get a pretty big image, basically a wall filling image at that distance.
Are you selling or are you recommending a screen of some kind that people can put up, or are you seeing people just mainly projecting this on the wall?
There's all kinds of solutions on the market, and we have a few. We have some screens that we offer, but some of the more dedicated screens that we have are actually designed for ultra short throws, where they're coming in at a very low angle up to the wall, and then you actually do want kind of more of a dedicated screen for that. With a longer throw ratio, where it's more like a flashlight shining on the wall, it's a little bit more flexible. So we've seen people that, just take the texture off their wall, then they're good to go, or they'll take the texture off and then they'll put projection paint. There's paint you can buy for that to make that wall into a dedicated sort of wall, or you can go the full, some people go the full automation route. They want, you turn it on with HDMI CEC, and then that turns on a projection screen that comes down and it's all automated, turns on the receiver, the speakers, everything. So there's kind of mild to wild in the way you want to set it up.
So I've been around projectors like I've gone to demos or showrooms with projectors, and it's always like a really dark room. Like they pull all the blinds down to try to make the room look dark, and I guess make the picture pop as much as possible. But what does Viewsonic do to kind of help with that challenge, I guess, of making it bright enough to view even in like a very sunny room in the daytime?
Yeah, I mean that's always sort of a bit of a limitation on projectors, is that it's hard to get the same kind of brightness that you would get out of a really big screen TV. So if you really wanted to pop, usually you do want to kind of have a controlled lighting environment. If it's really, really bright, then you actually need to go for more of like a commercial projector where you can get 6,000 or more lumens of brightness, something that's really designed to compete with bright environments. And those are the kind of ones that we set up in places like malls and whatnot, where you might have a kiosk display or something that you need to do really brightness. But for the best experience in your home, you usually do want a controlled lighting environment, because you will find that it is a better image.
So I want to just remind our viewers, if you have any questions about these products, Ray's detailing, definitely drop them into the chat and we'll try to answer them. In the meantime, I want to take it back to the gaming monitors. You spoke about one, but you announced a handful. I don't know how many, about 5 or so in the gaming segment specifically. And I noticed they're all IPS, like there's no VA. We're seeing less TN in general. Just curious why you decided to, kind of focus on IPS with this launch.
Yeah, in general, I think a lot of our gaming monitors are going to IPS, because IPS technology is getting mature enough now that we're not seeing the crazy sort of response times that we used to see, where you would actually get a really noticeable ghosting from frame to frame that would kind of ruin the point of having a high refresh rate monitor. We brought out our first sort of the high-end elite gaming monitors that we had was the Xg270 Qg, and that one is actually where we're announcing a replacement to that at this show, which is the Xg271 Qg. That's our dedicated G-Sync 27-inch monitor. But when we first brought that out, that was our first basically nano IPS that could do a 1 millisecond response time. And so you get the benefits of IPS with a higher bit of color and then a wider gamut, so that if you wanted to calibrate it, you could actually use it as for some professional work as well, because the display has that inherent quality to it. But then you also get the really fast response time, you get the really high refresh rate. So we're just trying to build the best monitor that we can at this point, and IPS is the technology that gets us there. For super hardcore gamers who need the absolute fastest, we do still have some 240 Hertz TN offerings, but those are actually, from a production standpoint, those are kind of trending out of the industry. And as IPS gets better and more refined, there's less and less of a need for those TNs to keep going.
What about the VA panels? Like, we tend to love them because they often have really high contrast, which helps boost the image quality. But again, like I feel like a lot of the majority of announcements lately are all IPS, and like VA is getting kind of ignored.
We do have some VA panels that we do both gaming and non-gaming. We've used them partly because they're really flexible. I think that's why one of the reasons why the TV industry likes VA panels so much is that it's very easy to get into different shapes. It's also easier to curve. So a lot of curved displays would go that direction. We definitely still use a lot of VAs just for the gaming ones where we really want to get to that really, really fast response time. It's hard to do that with a VA panel unless you're willing to go to some really, really intense sort of MBR, or you're trying to do anti-ghosting, and there's always artifacts to that. We've actually worked with Blur Busters on our 240 Hertz Xg270. They tuned it so that it would have the best image at a really, really fast refresh rate. And that was kind of the goal. And we're trying to take what we learned there and apply it to more models.
So we have a question, and I actually would ask this question too. What do you think? Why do you think the industry? Yes, we'll let Javier ask it.
Has Viewsonic tested OLED panels to create a monitor, and what's your opinion of OLED? I think you might have a lot to say. about that?
OLED as a technology, I mean, if you're just looking at it from a pure spec standpoint, the response time is incredibly good. Obviously, the contrast ratio is infinite. There's a lot to like about OLED. We have looked at OLED. Actually, we looked at a 55-inch that we determined not to bring to market because we actually thought that the TV side and what they were bringing on TV in terms of G-Sync support and whatnot might actually make that a harder product to sell.
Is that the one you announced last year at CES?
That's correct. We did have
Okay.
a prototype that we showed, and to my knowledge, we didn't move too far beyond that.
Okay.
Everything we're showing this year is products that are coming out. So nothing that's conceptual and you're not going to see. But we have definitely looked at OLEDs. There's still the inherent issues with OLEDs that are really hard to get away from. If you're using it as a computer monitor every day, you're going to have your desktop on there for several hours a day, and that's always going to be a problem for OLED. You can pixel shift quite a bit, but you're going to end up with issues with burn-in eventually. The brightness is a limiting factor on OLEDs as well. They're really great in like an HDR context where there's control of brightness to certain zones, where to get HDR certification, you usually only need to get the peak brightness in 10% of the display area. But then if you're doing full screen white on an OLED, you will notice a greater reduction in that brightness. I think OLEDs are really promising, but I think the technology needs to advance a little bit more to make it better for something that's going to sit on your desk and stay on all day and just show the same image over and over. But they are very exciting. And then, of course, there is cost. They are much more expensive. We're not seeing, because of that, you're really not seeing those lower ASP products coming to market. So everything is staying. I think the smallest right now that I've seen is about 48 inches. I haven't seen panels much smaller than that, other than in use in really high-end laptops, because that's a high ASP product. Those are usually $1,500, $2,000 laptops, so they can roll in some of that OLED cost in there. When you're just selling a display, if I have a 27-inch display, I have to convince somebody to spend more than $1,000 on it because of the display technology. It might be a much harder ask, and we're just not seeing the production of those panels being available. So part of it is the lack of demand is not driving that supply, and part of it is the supply isn't there to make that demand. So kind of a chicken and an egg thing on OLED.
What do you think, Abram? Would you like to see more OLED gaming monitors, or you're not?
I would love to see an OLED monitor, although, if burn-in is a problem, obviously that's an issue. Although we've reviewed a lot of laptops that have a fair number of laptops that have them, and I haven't used one of them long enough to see if it burnt in. So, but I would hope that like Lenovo and other companies that are selling OLED laptops aren't having like a burnt-in Windows logo on there. But I don't know. Maybe I wouldn't notice because it was always there. But
what's the reason that they're only coming out in the larger sizes? Is it just that's only what they're making? Like, why is it so hard, or I guess nearly impossible to find like something in the 20 like PC desktop size?
Yeah, I think part of that is the supplier side, where they look at things as, so if you have a production line that produces panels, that production line very likely can produce a lot of different size panels. So if you look at the price of the product that it's going to go into, that is really what's going to influence the price that you can sell that panel at. So if you're an OLED manufacturer and you can sell them to the TV industry, and those TVs are going to be $2,000 plus, and most of that is actually the panel, then there's actually quite a bit of ASP in producing that large panel. If you then go to the laptop manufacturers and you're able to get them into a 15.6 inch and you're able to sell that to them at $300 or $400, which is a lot of money for just that size of panel, you can actually punch out a lot of those panels because they're really small. So the amount of revenue that you're getting through your production line is very, very high. And then you get into like the 24 to 27 inch, and those would really only go into monitors because all-in-ones are not really the major part of the market at this point. Because those might be a high enough ASP to support it, but they would go into standalone monitors where the market, what people want to spend, is really in the $200 to $500. That's where it starts to fall apart, because you then can't get enough of those panels you can't get as many of those panels down the production line as you can in the 15.6. And then you have to sell them at a lower price. So there's not much incentive for the supplier to do that, to create this new market demand in product. If things got really bad and they needed to find new places to sell OLED, maybe that's where they would move. But from the supplier side, we haven't seen that availability in panels yet.
I have a question about your new portable projector that
Yes.
that you've shown. I forget the model number now.
The M2E is the portable projector that we showed.
The M2E. So you were saying when you presented it yesterday at Showstoppers, where I was, that there was a way that even though it comes with a plug, that you could actually power it off of a battery. What type of battery would you need? Would you need to use it?
You would need a battery bank, and I don't have the exact spec on that one. I can try to get that back for you, but you need one that's got a power delivery capability of, I believe, more than 15 watts. So there definitely are battery banks that you can get on, Amazon or wherever that have that capability. But it has to have Type-C PD functionality that's a little bit beyond what you would get if you're just like trying to charge a smartphone. So I know that the power adapter that we include with that projector is about a 40 to 50 watt power adapter. So expect that you would need to have basically, if you had let's put it simply, if you had a power bank that's one of the ones that's PD that can charge laptops, then it would be more than enough to run that. So there are those available.
Yeah, definitely. It's a big, a big and growing ecosystem. So. So that's really cool. Do you anticipate people where do you see people using portable projectors the most?
Oh, portable projectors is actually a really interesting segment of the market because it's sort of the most, I think projectors are at their best when they're kind of at their most fun. I've used some of our portable projectors just in my own, free time, and you'd be amazed how you use them, and they're in ways that really don't make sense. Like I do Switch gaming on my ceiling because it was fun. It's not something you would really think to do or buy a product for that purpose. But that's the thing about these portable projectors is once you have one, you just want to use it all the time. And the fact that it's portable just makes it so much easier. It's not mounted somewhere where you have to go to it. It comes with you. It goes in your bag, and you can set up a movie night outside on a blank wall, or you can get one of those inflatable projection screens, and they're just a lot of fun. And so I think that that's what people really want out of projectors is they're not necessarily trying to replace their television. They want something fun that can project decorations and fun stuff for the holidays, or have some fun with the kids, or gaming in a room where the TV is already used, stuff like that. And portable projectors, we're definitely expanding our lineup. It's pretty new for us. We only have had them in the last couple of years, but we're building out that product portfolio because they are really cool. The other usage for them is actually, in a more serious sense, would be people who travel for work and do presentations really like them. We see a lot from, say, the medical industry where they need to give presentations, and it can be really annoying to go into like a different conference room every day, and the tech setup is different, and there's somebody there, oh sorry, we're not able to get it connected, or the bulb burned out, or whatever. Whereas if you have a projector in your bag, you know how it works, you know that it works, you know how to connect it, you set it up, takes a couple minutes, you use their projection screen, and you're off and going, giving your presentation using your projector. So a lot of our kind of road warriors really, really love those for that purpose. So dual purpose for consumer and business.
So what was it like playing games on your ceiling?
It was fun. I was being the product guy that I am. I was in there analyzing the colors from frame to frame and seeing if I liked how it looked. So I don't know that I was enjoying the game so much as really looking at the thing. I'm one of those guys where I go into a game and I make sure all the settings are perfect, and I get all the eye candy, and then I never play the game. I do that all the time.
That sounds pretty cool. So I wanted to ask you a question about the gaming monitors announced this week. A lot of them have some pretty low response times. I saw as low as 1 millisecond. And it says some of them are using a technology called Pure XP. Can you explain what that is and how that helps with gamers?
Yeah, so Pure XP is sort of the marketing that we put on our MBR refresh rate. So there's a lot of technologies out there to try to minimize that ghosting and to make that image sharper in motion. So that's always a really important thing. And there's a lot of techniques. There's UMLB. There's, you know, if you want to insert a black frame between each individual frame, we have monitors that support that as well. But the Pure XP came around with the Xg270, the 240 Hertz IPS monitor that we brought out, where we worked very closely with Blur Busters to make sure that that was the best possible motion that we could get. And I don't, you know, if you've ever read their publication, they go into really detail about, you know, frame to frame movement in a way that makes them a really specialized source for that. So we helped them tune that, and we've taken what we learned from working with them, and we've tried to apply that to as many of the new elite monitors and the gaming monitors that we have coming out, because that's really important, you know, intellectual property. Now we know how to do a really good experience and minimize that blur that you get when gaming. So that's really what the Pure XP helps with.
Very cool. And just before we start coming to the end of our time, I just want to make sure, did we get a chance to look at all the products you wanted to show to us, Ray?
I think so. I think that you know, there are a lot of ways to get our information. We do have press links and whatnot. So if anyone wants to get to those, we can provide that as well.
Yeah, and I will be doing a roundup of your monitor announcements that'll be on the site in a little bit. So stay tuned for that. If for the viewers, if you want to take a look at the full specs, I know you have from full HD all the way up to 4K, 24 inches starting out. So there's big range there for gamers, right?
Absolutely.
All right, so it looks like we are about coming to the end of our time, unless Abram had any final questions you wanted to throw in there.
No, I'm just really excited to see how these monitors perform when they get closer to coming out.
Oh, we do actually have. Sorry, we do have a question we could squeeze in from Razer 2048. Do you have any recommendations for Razer, Ray? They're looking for a monitor that can support a mix of gaming, but also video editing work, and color accuracy is important for that video editing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and that's one of the key things on our elite monitors, the IPS ones, is that a lot of those basically almost cover the entire DCI-P3 color gamut. So, if you're looking at video editing work, the panels themselves actually have very, very wide color capability and wide color gamut. So, many of those we don't factory calibrate them because we save that for what we call our VP or our professional monitors that are focused just at content creation. Those are the ones that are sort of the 99% Adobe RGB, really high-end monitors. But if you're trying to do both of those things and you need high refresh rate, definitely look at the elites. Look at getting a screen calibration device, and you absolutely can use it as a dual-purpose device.
Awesome. And then just for fun facts, whenever we do our gaming monitor reviews, we do calibrate them to the best of our abilities and share our recommended calibration settings. So that's something to check out if you're looking at one of the gaming monitors reviewed. We have an expert really calibrating them to the best accuracy, specifically at 200 nits, which is like a more comfortable level of brightness. So something to check out for Razer 2048. Okay, so it looks like we are about coming to the end of our time, but I want to let everyone know we'll be back in about a little less than 30 minutes for our next CES live stream, which will be with Kingston. So be sure to like Tom's Hardware on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss that or any of the other live streams that we'll be doing today. So thanks to Abram for stopping by and Ray from Viewsonic. Ray, do you have any last words for our viewers?
No, just you know, thank you guys, and you know, enjoy the virtual show. There's a lot of really cool stuff being shown. It makes people like me who you know live and breathe technology really love what we do. So enjoy the technology, get the news out there, and thank you guys, Tom's Hardware, for getting all that news out in front of us.
Absolutely, I didn't have to leave my seat. It was no problem at all. Well, thanks for everyone who tuned in.